Fear and faith are both responses to the unknown. They stand at the same crossroads, look at the same uncertainty, and yet choose entirely different paths. Fear looks at what might go wrong. Faith looks at who walks with you. Every human heart knows fear. It whispers in moments of loss, rises in storms, tightens the chest when control slips away. Fear is not a stranger to faith, it is faith's greatest challenger. And the question that echoes through every trial, every storm, every sleepless night is this: is your faith greater than your fear? Fear is natural, but it is not meant to well. Fear is a survival instinct. It alerts, protects, warns. But fear becomes destructive when it takes the throne of the heart. Fear was never meant to lead your life, it was meant to be acknowledged, then surrendered. When fear rules, it shrinks vision. When fear leads, it silences hope. When fear dominates, it distorts truth. Faith does not deny fear's existence. Faith denies fear's authority. The presence of fear does not mean the absence of faith, but the rule of fear means faith has been pushed aside. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to trust ANYWI. Faith is often misunderstood as emotional confidence or spiritual certainty. But true faith is far quieter and far braver than that. Faith is choosing trust when evidence is incomplete. Faith is walking when the path is unclear. Faith is leaning into God when circumstances lean against you. Faith does not shout, it steadies. Fear screams predictions of disaster. Faith whispers promises of presence. Faith does not promise comfort, it promises companionship. The disciples feared the storm. While power stood in the BO, the storm did not frighten Jesus, but it terrified the disciples. Why? Because fear focuses on waves, not authority. Fear measures the storm, not the Savior. The storm was real. The danger was real. But so was the presence of Christ. The storm asked one question: what if? Jesus answered with another: who is with you? Fear asks you to interpret life through circumstances. Faith asks you to interpret circumstances through God. Fear grows when you forget who God is. Fear magnifies problems. Faith magnifies God. Fear reminds you of past failures. Faith reminds you of eternal promises. Fear isolates. Faith draws near when fear takes over. God begins to feel distant not because he moved, but because fear narrows your focus. Fear makes you forget God's character. Faith remembers his nature. He is faithful even when outcomes are unclear. He is powerful even when you feel powerless. He is present even when you feel alone. What you feed will grow. Feeds on imagination. Faith feeds on remembrance. Fear rehearses worst case scenarios. Faith recalls past deliverance. What you meditate on shapes what you trust. If you feed fear, it will grow louder. If you feed faith, it will grow stronger. Faith is strengthened not by pretending everything is fine, but by remembering who has carried you through before. God does not shame you for fear. He invites you to trust. Jesus did not condemn the disciples for being afraid. He questioned where their trust rested. Fear is not sin, but letting fear replace faith is surrendering the wrong authority. God does not meet fear with anger. He meets it with invitation, an invitation to look beyond what you see, an invitation to trust beyond what you understand, an invitation to rest beyond what you control. Faith sees what fear see and not to fear, sees closed doors. Faith sees unseen paths. Fear sees limited resources. Faith sees divine provision. Fear sees weakness. Faith sees dependence. Fear says, "You can't." Faith says, "God can." Faith does not change the facts, it changes the focus. When fear speaks louder than FITH, there are moments when fear shouts and faith feels silent, in illness, in loss, in uncertainty, in waiting. But silence does not mean absence. God often works quietly, faith often grows slowly, and fear often screams right before it loses power. When fear grows loud, do not panic, lean closer. Faith is formed in pressure. Not mephicartic comfort does not require faith. Certainty does not demand trust. Faith is forged in moments when you must choose to trust. Without proof. The storm tests what you believe. The delay reveals where you place your hope. Faith that has never been tested is faith that has never been strengthened. You are not called to be fearless. You are called to be faith. Never asked you to be fearless. He asked you to follow. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is obedience in the presence of fear. Faithful people feel fear, but they refuse to let it decide their direction. God is greater than what you fear. Your fear may be real, but God is more real. Your fear may feel overwhelming, but God is unchanging. Your fear may shake you, but God holds you steady. Faith does not minimize pain, it maximizes trust. When faith leads, fear loses its grip. Fear controls when you try to manage everything. Faith frees when you surrender. Control. Faith is not passive, it is active trust. It steps forward while fear pulls back. It listens while fear panics. It rests while fear strives. God's presence is greater than your perception. Even when you don't feel him, even when you don't hear him, even when you don't understand him, God is present. Faith anchors itself not in feelings, but in truth. Remember, who walks with what are not walking alone into uncertainty. You are walking with God into purpose. The same God who calms storms beside you in this one. The same God who conquered death holds your tomorrow. The final cuest. Owen fear will always ask, what if everything falls apart? Faith answers, even then, God remains. So the question is not whether fear will come. It will. The question is this: when fear speaks, will faith answer louder? When fear rises, will faith stand taller? When fear trembles, will faith trust deeper? Is your faith greater than your fear? Not because fear is small, but because God is great. Fear looks at the storm. Faith looks at the Savior. Fear demands certainty. Faith rests in presence. Fear asks, what if? Faith declares, even so. And when faith leads, fear no longer controls the heart.